Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhaktasevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Ter Bhavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 7, Lord Krishna instructs Uddhava, text 31 onwards. So Krishna was speaking about Maharaj Yadu meeting a Brahman. Maharaj Yadu saw a Brahman, asked him a few questions, and then Krishna is replying. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Yadu Nevam Mahabhago Brahmanyena Sumedasa Rishta Sabhajita Praha Prashraya Vanatam Dvijaha. Lord Krishna continued. The intelligent king Yadu, always respectful to the Brahmins, waited with bowed head as the Brahman, pleased with the king's attitude, began to reply. Shri Brahman Vacha Santi me Guru Rajan Bahavo Buddhi Upshrita Yato Buddhim Upadaya Mukto Atam Ihitan Shrino. The Brahman said, my dear king, with my intelligence I have taken shelter of many spiritual masters. Having gained transcendental understanding from them, I now wander about the earth in a liberated condition. Please listen as I describe them to you. The word Buddhi Upashrita in this verse indicates that the Brahman's spiritual masters did not directly speak to him. Instead, he learned from them by his intelligence. All living entities were inimical to Lord Krishna, glorify useless material things, and spend their lives trying to lord it over the material objects they falsely worship. Thus, the conditioned souls try to increase their duration of life, as well as their fame and beauty, by means of mundane religiosity, economic development, and gross sense gratification. King Yadu noticed that the saintly Avadhuta did not behave like that. Therefore, the king was inquisitive to find out the actual situation of the Brahman. In reply to the king, the saintly Brahman states, I do not consider the 24 elements of the physical world as objects of my sense gratification, and therefore I don't consider accepting or rejecting them. Rather, I accept the material elements as my instructing spiritual masters. Thus, even though wandering throughout the material world, I am never bereft of service to the Guru. Taking shelter of steady intelligence, I travel about the earth, constantly engaged on the transcendental platform. By intelligence, I transcend useless desires, and my ultimate goal is a loving devotion service of the Lord. Now I shall explain to you about my 24 spiritual masters. So, same things we see, more than these 24. Of course, Avadhuta, the Brahman, saw 24 and he got some instructions from them. There are millions of things we see every day. It's just depending upon our consciousness. If our consciousness is to how to enjoy these things, we'll look at them accordingly. If the consciousness is, what does it teach me? How can I engage more in the service of Krishna? Or how can I use this in the service of Krishna? How can I learn from them? How can I make progress on the spiritual path? It all depends upon us. What do we learn? How we learn? And the leaders, even the material leaders, if we read them, if we listen to them, they do gather knowledge from everything they see. Everywhere they go, they gather knowledge, something or other. They always do. Now, we have to go beyond. We have to be on the spiritual level to understand what is this trying to teach me. Then our consciousness, our viewpoint will change. So what are these 24 gurus? Prithvi Vayurakasham Apo Agnish Chandrama Ravi Kapoto Ajgara Sindhu Patango Madhu Krit Gajaha Madhuha Harino Meena Pingala Kururo Arbhaka Kumari Shar Krit Sarpa Ura Nabhi Supesh Krit Ete me Guru Rajan Chatur Vishantir Ashita Shiksha Vrite Bhire Tesham Anva Shiksham Ihatmana. O king, I have taken shelter of 24 gurus who are the following: the earth, the air, sky, water, fire, moon, sun, pigeon, and python, the sea, moth, honeybee, elephant, and honey thief, the deer, the fish, the prostitute Pingala, the Kurara bird, and the child, and the young girl, arrow maker, serpent, spider, and wasp. My dear king, by studying their activities, I have learned the science of the self. Studying their activities, one can only study if the consciousness is up to that level to study what is, how it's giving me instructions on my spiritual path. The wasp is known as Supeshkrit because it causes the insect that it kills to take a beautiful form in the next life. So we'll read about this wasp, the Supeshkrit. Yato yad anushiksami yatha va nahushatmaja tattatha purusha vyaghra niboda kathiyami te. Please listen, O son of Maharaja Yati, O tiger among men, as I explain to you what I have learned from each of these gurus. Bhutera mano api dhiro deva vashanugah tad vidvanna chalen margad anva shiksham kshitera vratam. Also, a sober person, even when harassed by other living beings, should understand that his aggressors are acting helplessly under the control of God. And thus he should never be distracted from progress on his own path. This rule I have learned from the earth. So tolerance, how earth tolerates us. The earth is a symbol of tolerance. By deep oil drilling, atomic explosions, pollution, and so on, the earth is constantly harassed by demoniac living entities. Sometimes lush forests are cut down by greedy men with commercial interests, and thus a wasteland is created. Sometimes the earth's surface is soaked by the blood of soldiers fighting in savage warfare. Yet despite all these disturbances, the earth continues to provide all the necessities of the living beings. In this way, one may learn the art of tolerance by studying the earth. And how much nonsense activities we are doing on earth, not understanding earth is Bhudevi. She is one of the wives of Krishna, of Lord Vishnu. And we just exploit earth. Deep oil drilling, atomic explosions, pollution, and so many other nonsense things we do. But earth still tolerates us because Krishna has provided and made the earth so that she can take care of us, maintain us. So like one place, Prabhupada explained, just like mosquito is moving on my skin and biting me, or insect, ant is moving and biting me, and this and that. Similarly, earth, and we are tolerating, and similarly, earth is tolerating us. So tolerance we have to learn from earth. Shashwat parartha sarveha pararthar kanta sambhava sadhu shikshet bhubhritto nag shishya paratmatam. A saintly person should learn from the mountain to devote all his efforts to the service of others and to make the welfare of others the sole reason for his existence. Similarly, as a disciple of the tree, he should learn to dedicate himself to others. Great mountains bear unlimited quantities of earth, which in turn gives sustenance to innumerable forms of life, such as trees, grass, birds, animals, and so on. Mountains also pour forth unlimited quantities of crystalline water in the form of waterfalls and rivers, and this water gives life to all. Mountains don't keep the rivers for themselves, they just let it all go. By studying the examples of mountains, one should learn the art of providing for the happiness of all living entities. Similarly, one may take excellent lessons from the pious trees who offer innumerable benefits such as fruits, flowers, cooling shade, and medicinal extracts. Even when a tree is suddenly cut down and dragged away, the tree does not protest but continues to give service to others in the form of firewood. Or now it's also used in construction. Thus, one should become the disciple of such magnanimous trees and learn from them the qualities of saintly conduct. So that's why Mahaprabhu also said in his Shikshashtam, Trinadapi Shunichena Taroriva Sahishna. One should be humble, more humble than a blade of grass, and tolerant like a tree, and give respect to others and do not expect respect for oneself. Then one can chant the holy name constantly. So much of tolerance, and not just a tolerance of tree. It gives shade, it gives everything for others' benefits, other benefits all the time. And so much so that now they use chainsaws and so many other things, but earlier they used to use that axe to cut the tree, and the handle of the axe is made of wood. So tree product is used to cut down the tree itself, and still the tree does not protest. According to Srila Madhvacharya, the word Pararthikanta Sambhava indicates that one should dedicate all of one's wealth and other assets for the welfare of others. By one's acquired opulence, one should especially try to please the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the demigods, as well as all truly respectable superior personalities, will automatically be pleased. By developing saintly conduct as described in this verse, one will become tolerant. And this will free one from the useless agitation of the material senses, which drive one to wander throughout the world, searching in vain for material happiness. So searching in vain for material happiness. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also emphasized the tree's quality of tolerance. Taro Ravi Saheshuna. One who is as tolerant as a tree can chant the holy name of Krishna, constantly finding ever new satisfaction. Because if we start retaliating for everything that happens in our lives, we cannot live peacefully. On the other hand, if somebody does something against us, brings out something, some negative action in our life. So Krishna, it comes in Bhagavatam 10th canto that one who thinks this is the karma of my reaction of my karma, and still engages or offers respects to Krishna with his body, mind, and words. He is the one who's ready for liberation. It takes time, it takes practice, lots and lots of practice. Because our mentality in material life is just give it back to the person who's doing something wrong to us. Give it back right away, or sooner or later, just give it back. But this is not what scriptures teach us. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he says, Tarorapi Sahishnana, then if we want to chant the holy name of Krishna constantly, sometimes people say, oh, he is disturbing me, so I cannot chant. Let me take the revenge. Let me settle the score. Then I'll be able to chant. No, then Krishna will send something else, somebody else to agitate us, to provoke us. So we have to tolerate. We have to tolerate. And not only tolerate, a devotee, of course, this is going way far. Devotee not only tolerates, but he forgives him, forgives the other person. Another level up, not only forgives him, but he works for his welfare. He tries to see that this person becomes a devotee or makes progress spiritually. That is the quality that we have to cultivate. Not only no reaction, no agitation in our mind, no retaliation, but at the same time working for his benefit. Nityananda Prabhu showed it in the case of Jagai Madhai. Of course, we can say Lord Nityananda is the Supreme Lord. What is it that he cannot do? Haridas Thakur, he was beaten up in 22 marketplaces by the soldiers of Kazi. And they were not just little bitty soldiers and beating him up just like a slap on the wrist. No. They were beating him up, they were abusing him, hurling abuses at him. Basically, the order was to kill Haridas and set an example for the people of the marketplaces that better not chant the holy names of Krishna. And what was Haridas Thakur doing? He was looking at them with so much of compassion in his eyes. He wasn't even saying anything, not even begging for any mercy or just forgiveness or anything. No. He was looking at them with compassion. That why you're doing all this? Of course, the result being Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and covered Haridas with his body. This was Mahaprabhu's mercy on Haridas Thakur. And he took all the blows on his body. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took all the blows on his body. But Mahaprabhu actually came to kill the soldiers with his Sudarshan Chakra. But the way Haridas Thakur was looking at the soldiers and praying to Krishna to forgive them, the Sudarshan Chakra would not leave the hands of Mahaprabhu. Sudarshan Chakra had no strength to leave and to kill those soldiers because Haridas Thakur was forgiving them. That's a devotee. Of course, I'm not saying that I can imitate or we can imitate, but this is the standard that is presented before us by the scriptures. Did Prahlad Maharaj try to retaliate? No. He did not give up his devotion service, did not give up chanting, but he did not retaliate against Hiranyakashipu. So can anybody do anything like this, beating us up in 22 marketplaces or throwing us from the top of the cliff? Our own father, can he do that? No. So what at the most, what bad can happen in our lives? We think it is very, very bad, but we have to look at these examples. Whatever negative thing can happen in our life, it doesn't even come close to what Haridas Thakur went through, Prahlad Maharaj went through, what Pandavas went through. It doesn't even come close. And we get disturbed at very little bitty things. Somebody said something to me, somebody did this to me, and we get disturbed. We just have to understand these are all tests by Krishna. Whenever, just like in a school or college, when we study something, whenever the course is complete, or whenever the chapter is complete, sometimes in colleges we used to get pop quiz. Not in India. India don't have this culture, but here we used to get pop quiz. Pop quiz means all of a sudden, the teacher is teaching the course, chapter is complete. Next day he will come in the class. Okay, there's a pop quiz. These are the questions, 4 or 5 questions you have to answer, and it takes about 10 minutes or so. Then he carries on with his class. But those answers, they're counted. So you got to be ready for the pop quiz. So our chapter is complete, then the pop quiz will be coming. So Krishna is definitely gonna present lots of quizzes, lots of tests to see how much we have learned. But more we tolerate, more humble we become, more just like mountain or tree, they're ready to give everything for others, service, more that mood we have, then definitely it helps us chant Krishna's name constantly, because then we have no other shelter other than Krishna. No shelter other than Krishna. And then Krishna means Krishna's holy name. Pranavrityeva santushena munir navendriya priya jnanam yathana nasheta navakirti kiryet vang manaha. A learned sage should take his satisfaction in the simple maintenance of his existence and should not seek satisfaction through gratifying the material senses. In other words, one should care for the material body in such a way that one's higher knowledge is not destroyed, and so that one's speech and mind are not deviated from self-realization. So, simple living, very, very simple living, not very opulent and show-off kind of living. A wise man does not absorb his consciousness in the forms, flavors, aromas, and sensations of material sense gratification, but rather accepts activities such as eating and sleeping simply to keep body and soul together. Simply to keep body and soul together. Eating and sleeping is only for that. Then, of course, we have so many desires, and especially the taste of the tongue. Definitely in the wake of so much of luxurious and wonderful prasadam that we get. And definitely it's very difficult, very, very difficult to control the tongue, control the mind. But the point is we have to make it as simple as possible. One must properly maintain one's body by regulated activities of eating, sleeping, cleansing, etc. Otherwise, the mind will become weak And once the spiritual knowledge will fade away, because then the mind will always be going towards, okay, let me eat this, let me do this, let me enjoy this. Where is the question of spiritual knowledge? If one eats too austerely, or if in the name of selflessness one accepts impure food, surely one loses control of the mind. So not too austere. Yukta ahar viharasya. Yukta. Yukta means controlled. It doesn't mean austere, too austere. Now it depends. How much more we grow spiritually, more all these four material activities, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, they all go down. Raghunath Das Goswami would every day, every other day, he would take some buttermilk in one dona. That's it. Similarly, other Goswamis also. But we cannot imitate them either. And that doesn't mean we start eating luxuriantly every day. That will not help either. Or if in the name of selflessness one accepts impure food. Impure food means either meat or liquor or cigarettes or something like, which is not offered and which is not offerable to Krishna. Thinking that, oh, I'm totally renounced, I can eat whatever I get. I go for begging, whatever I get, I'll eat. No. Surely one loses control of the mind. On the other hand, if one eats food that is excessively fatty or rich, there will be an unwanted increase in sleep and semen. And thus the mind and speech will be overwhelmed by the modes of passion and ignorance. And that definitely happens. If we eat too fatty food or very rich or very high in protein content or fat content, then we have to sleep too much to digest that food and increases the semen in the body. Because whatever the food goes in, whatever goes in will change what comes out of the mouth, means how we speak. So if we are eating too rich of food always, once in a while, it's okay. What the food does, it goes in the body, and the body mechanism, it creates blood and semen in men and women, definitely other hormones. And whatever is left, it comes out as stool and urine. That's simple, more complex, the digestive system. That's why in the heavenly planets, there is no mention of them passing stool and urine or them perspiring in the heavenly planets. Why? Because the food is controlled. Just like when this Apsara, I think Urvashi came, and with Maharaj Yayati, she was there. Then she told him, first thing, I don't want to see you naked, because no matter how they show in pictures and movies, heavenly planets, they are not naked. They're very conscious of how do they walk and talk and whatever. Only on Earth planet, and of course lower than Earth, they move around naked. And she said, I'll only eat ghee. That's all I'll eat. So on heavenly planets, they don't eat all this cooked food. Mostly it is juices and ghee. So everything they eat, it turns right away into blood and semen. That's it. But anyway, so this is, one has to be very careful of what one eats. And in fact, now the scientists are also coming up with this, that if you eat after sunset, it's very bad for the health. And it can create different types of cancer. In Ayurveda, it's always there. Don't eat after sunset because the body, with the sun, when the sun is up, the body has a power or heat to digest the food, whatever we eat. If we eat too late, especially after sunset, whatever, 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m., the body cannot assimilate, cannot digest that food properly. So not only what to eat, but when to eat. That's also important. And thus the mind and speech will be overwhelmed by the modes of passion and ignorance. Lord Krishna has summarized the whole matter in the Bhagavad Gita by his statement, Yukta har viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu. One should moderately and intelligently regulate all of one's bodily activities so that they're favorable for self-realization. This technique is taught by the bona fide spiritual master. If one is too austere or if one engages too much in sense gratification, self-realization is impossible. So one has to, because the goal is to make spiritual progress. So why let all these things come in the way? It's a duty of a devotee of the Lord to say, avoid seeing any object as separate from Krishna, because that is illusion. A gentleman will never try to enjoy the property of another gentleman. Similarly, if one sees everything in relation to Krishna, there is no scope for material sense gratification. But if one sees material objects as separate from Krishna, then one's material enjoying propensity is immediately aroused. A human being must be intelligent enough to distinguish between prayers or temporary gratification and shreyas or permanent benefit. One may accept sense activity in a regulated, limited fashion so that one will be strong for serving Krishna. But if one excessively indulges the material senses, one will lose one's gravity and seriousness in spiritual life and act like an ordinary materialist. The ultimate goal, as stated here, is jnana, or steady consciousness of the absolute truth, Lord Krishna. Also, there is a saying that some people live to eat, some people eat to live. Now it depends. What do we want to do? And because of our unregulated eating habits, all these hotels have come up. Fast food chains and hotels. It's such a huge industry. Huge industry. Instead of just living and eating simply, we have so many desires, and all these chains now, the takeout or Zomato or this delivery, that is also becoming so popular. Why? Because we don't want to cook simple food at home and eat it. That's all it's required. And we can only imagine what kind of ingredients all these hotel people they must be using. Definitely not the best kind. And what kind of consciousness would be of the person who's preparing that food? We know that, we have read that the consciousness of the cook goes in the food. And when we are eating that food with that kind of consciousness, how much it is affecting our consciousness. It's not offered, first of all, and it is prepared by somebody who doesn't care for us. All he cares for is his money and whatever things he's going at home or at work. So definitely, and no cleanliness. So what kind of food we are eating? So food is not just to fill our bellies with. Food is to give us nourishment, to give us strength, purify our consciousness. Jaisa an, vaisa man. Jaisa pani, vaisi vani. Very, very important what we eat, what we put in. And then it will, what goes in, it guides what comes out of our mouth. So we got to be very, very careful, very careful. Visheshva Vishan Yogi Nana Dharmesha Sarvata Guna Dosha Vyapetatma Na Vishajjet Vayuvat. Even a transcendental is surrounded by innumerable material objects which possess good and bad qualities. However, one who has transcended material good and evil should not become entangled even when in contact with the material objects. Rather, he should act like the wind. So another spiritual master is wind. Doesn't get attached, doesn't get entangled, or doesn't take up the qualities of other things. The wind is the external manifestation of air, where prana is the internal manifestation. When the wind passes over waterfalls, it carries sprinkles of clear water and thus becomes most refreshing. Sometimes the wind blows through a beautiful forest, carrying the fragrances of fruits and flowers. At other times, the wind may fuel a fire that burns the same forest to ashes. The wind, however, being fixed in its own nature, remains neutral in both its auspicious and inauspicious activities. Similarly, within this material world, we'll inevitably face both pleasing and disgusting situations. If, however, we remain fixed in Krishna consciousness, we'll not be disturbed by the inauspicious, nor we will become attached to the materially auspicious. So we got to remain neutral. In the course of his spiritual duties, a devotee sometimes finds himself chanting Hare Krishna in a beautiful country atmosphere, and sometimes he finds himself doing the same thing in a hellish city. In both cases, the devotee fixes his mind upon Lord Krishna and experiences transcendental bliss. What to speak of sitting and chanting, of being in a hellish city, is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. What he would do, because such an exalted sage and saint, people would come from long distances to his kuti to seek his blessings, and he would get disturbed. He would say, "My better is just to sit here and chant." But no, they wanted material blessings. So what he did, he had a disciple or a follower, and he said, "Babaji Maharaj, let me make you a nice place where you can sit and chant." And Babaji said, "You please prepare a toilet for me where I can sit and chant." So this is what he would do. He would sit in the toilet and chant, so people would not disturb him. He was not disturbed by whether he's sitting in a toilet or not. And when he would chant in the toilet, and after a few days or months or years, whatever it was, every brick of the toilet, when somebody would go in, he would hear the chanting of Hare Krishna by the bricks also. So it's not that every time we're going to find an atmosphere according to our taste. No. We got to understand whatever Krishna, somehow or other, whatever he has arranged, that is best for me. All I have to do is chant or perform my devotional service. Many times people are like, when my situation changes or something changes, if it becomes like that, if my wife becomes more more conducive for my spiritual growth, or if my boss changes, if I get this job or in this city, and then I will chant. No. Whatever situation it is, if we chant and pray to Krishna, whatever Krishna wants to change the situation, fine. If he doesn't change the situation, great. All we have to do is chant, do a devotional service. We somehow have to try to fix our mind on lotus feet of Krishna, the holy names of Krishna. Material situations, it all depends on Krishna, whether he wants. We cannot change. We have no power to change anything. In both cases, the devotee fixes his mind upon Lord Krishna and experiences transcendental bliss. Although the wind passes through the most dark and forbidding places, the wind is not frightened or disturbed. Similarly, a devotee of Lord Krishna should never be fearful or anxious, even when in the most difficult situation. Never be fearful or anxious. Avashya Rakhive Krishna. With that thought, just keep going. That's all. One who is attached to materially pleasing forms, tastes, smells, sounds, and touches will also be repelled by the opposite in each category. They are two sides of the same coin. Attachment and repulsion. Thus, finding himself surrounded by innumerable good and bad things, the materialist is constantly disturbed. When the wind blows in many directions at once, the atmosphere becomes agitated. Similarly, if the mind is constantly attracted and repelled by material objects, there will be such mental disturbance that it will be impossible to think of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should learn from the blowing wind the art of moving throughout the material world without attachment. So our attachment should only be with holy names of Krishna, nothing else. Oh, it is too hot, I cannot chant. It is too cold, I cannot chant. No, just chant. And a mind, the problem is with the mind, uncontrolled mind. And when the mind comes in control, whether it is cold or heat or too hot, it just doesn't matter. It won't matter. When it is too hot, we are looking for AC and we have to set the temperature right. But the real AC that we should be looking for is AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And then our mind will be calm, will calm down, and then we can perform our services properly. Just imagine what Prabhupada went through before and during and after also in this, we started this movement. How he came from India at the age of 70. Then no fixed place where to go and how to do anything in the country when nobody, only one person knew him. That's it. And slowly, he made acquaintances. He had followers. Slowly, it happened. It didn't happen overnight. So much of struggle he went through, but he did not lose hope. He did not give up. He did not lose hope. He carried on with full faith, without any grudges in his heart either. And look at what he did. Parthiveshvehi deheshu pravishtas tad gunashraya Gunarna yujyate yogi gandhar vayu rivatman drik. Although a self-realized soul may live in various material bodies while in this world, experiencing their various qualities and functions, he is never entangled. Just as a wind which carries various aromas does not actually mix with them. Although we experience the wind as fragrant or foul depending on the aroma it carries, the wind does not in fact change its actual nature. Similarly, although we regard a particular person as strong or weak, intelligent or retarded, beautiful or homely, good or bad, the pure spirit soul, who is the actual person, does not really possess any of the qualities of the body, but is merely covered by them, just as the wind is covered by different aromas. So the soul is always divya, transcendental, spiritual. Thus, a Krishna conscious person is always aware that he is different from the temporary body. He experiences the various transformations of the body, such as childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. But although he experiences the pains, pleasures, qualities, and functions of that body, a Krishna conscious person never thinks that he is the body. He always understands that he is an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Lord Krishna. As stated in this verse, na yujyate yogi, he is not entangled. Not yujyate, he is never entangled. The conclusion is that one should never consider a Krishna conscious person in terms of bodily designation, but should see him as an eternal servitor of the Lord. So a devotee, that's what first instruction of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, you're not this body. So we have to get above this body conception of life. And when, first of all, we don't think ourselves this body, we'll see others also not this body. Just like Bhakti Tirth Maharaj. He was American, but he was black American. Although he's very, very intelligent, very devoted, very much surrendered. He was at that time in 60s. He was one of the few students in America who did PhD from a very prestigious university in black. It's like almost never heard of at that time for black students to do PhD from such a university. I think from Princeton University he did. So somehow he came in contact with the devotees, he joined the movement, he gave up his career. And one day he went to Prabhupada. But Prabhupada, because at that time, almost everybody was white Americans who had joined the movement. And he was only black guy. And those seeds of segregation, discrimination were there. So he went to Prabhupada. The Prabhupada, these devotees, they discriminate against me based on my body color. What did Prabhupada say? Did Prabhupada tell him, oh, it is very bad, I'll teach them a lesson, I'll talk to them? Prabhupada said, why do you think you are black? You're not this body. And Bhakti Tirth Maharaj was speechless. He said, yes, I'm thinking I'm black. How others are treating me doesn't matter, because I'm thinking I'm black. That's why I'm getting disturbed. I'm not black. I'm not white. I'm not this body. I'm a spirit soul. So first we should not think this body, and then we'll treat others based on the soul level, not the body level. But this we have to learn from the wind. Wind does not get entangled with anything. So we should not get entangled in the bodily conscious and the bodily relationships or the bodily duties or the bodily functions, just like wind. Okay, well, these are wonderful, wonderful gurus, and we have to learn from them. So we'll stop here and see anybody has any questions or comments.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful
Thank you,
teaching.
Master. Yeah, I know. Wonderful teachings. Okay, so you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.
Krishna. Thank you.